Hello, and welcome to today's episode of The Pagan Parlor. Today is Friday, January 21st, 2022, and I am your host, Maximilian Pensword, but you can call me Max. And here in this podcast, we explore a variety of things related to paganism. Now at this point, I would like to give a notice and reminder that paganism is a broad term that envelops many different pantheons and belief systems, and as such, this podcast will be focused on paganism as a whole and not on any specific branch of it. Each episode contains a short lesson on a stone or metal, a Pagan Promotions segment, a story, myth, or legend, a segment I like to call Keeping Up with the Christians, which you will hopefully find amusing as well as informative on what the Christians are up to lately, and an audience Q&A segment. Now, since we are all busy people, we'll jump straight in with a quick ritual. This ritual is intended to join the energies of the listeners in with the energies of the host, and the same in reverse, as well as basic protections from the ill intentions of others. Feel free to join in at home, or wherever and whenever you find yourself. I will now light a candle, and as I do so, I invite in all beings of good intent into the ritual space. Humans, gods and goddesses, spirits and the fae, come and join together in good nature and to play. Come old, come young, come scarred and burned, it matters little when there's a lesson to be learned. Come in good faith and you will be safe, but come with ill intent and your mind shall get bent. Bring us together in storms and good weather, keep us from pain and from those who are sane. For the harm of none and the good of many, we call to the gods and they are many. Blessed are we, so mote it be. This week, the stone suggested for research by our designated stone selector, Kip, from the Sorcerers Guild on Facebook, is Dolomite. As such, let's get ready to learn something magical. This week's lesson uses information that comes from ravencrystals.com and wikipedia.org. Dolomite crystals are an anhydrous carbonate mineral containing calcium and magnesium, as well as several other trace elements and minerals. This crystal can be white, gray, pink, reddish-white, brownish-white, or clear. The crystal is brittle and not very hard at only a 3.5 to a 4 on the hardness scale. While this stone was commonly formed in earlier periods of the world, currently there is very little of it being formed naturally. Despite this, there are several things that dolomite is used for, from magnesium production to a flux substitute in smelting, and even as a soil additive. In a magical sense, dolomite is attuned to all the chakras, as well as the zodiac sign of Aries and the element of Earth. This crystal is used to encourage charitable actions and original thinking, as well as manifesting one's thoughts into reality. Dolomite is said to align one with the flow of divine timing, and to release your expectations and enjoy to the present. The mineral softens negative emotions and helps one to achieve calm and centered balanced self. While dolomite is an excellent stone for meditation, and some do consume it as a supplement for calcium and magnesium, it can also contain trace heavy metals such as aluminum, arsenic, lead, mercury, and nickel. You know what this means? Don't be a dumbass and eat your dolomite crystals because you don't want heavy metal poisoning, no matter what benefits it may give you spiritually or nutritionally. Next, we have our Pagan Promotions section. Herein, I will highlight one person of interest, celebrity, or pagan-owned business per week. This week, we are highlighting a pagan who goes by Azariel Flame. He has been a practitioner of witchcraft and sorcery for the last 20 years and operates a shop by the name of Northwich Magic Co. Look for a link in the description. They specialize in deity candles, altar tiles, planetary items, as well as offering courses and services and running a blog with short lessons on magical practice. Their store has been open and operating for just under 3 years, and judging from some of the pictures they have posted up on their website and Instagram, they offer beautiful products, even ready-built altars that appear to be handcrafted and one of a kind, with no two being identical. Make sure you click the link in the episode description and check out their website. They've got a lot of really cool stuff. Also, check out their YouTube channel as well. I'll put the link in for that in the description because they offer free magic lessons there. You guys really want to check that out if you're looking for a place to get started on how to start doing magic. If you've just been tiptoeing around it and haven't really got started, here's a great place to try. The next section is on stories, myths, and legends. In this portion of the podcast, I will retell a legend, myth, or story related to the gods, magic, or anything else that I feel to be paganism related. Today's story comes from storynori.com. The story is titled The Punishment of Loki. It tells of how the mischievous god Loki was punished by the other Norse gods for his crimes, as some of his tricks and jokes were just seen as being outright evil in nature.
Please allow me to introduce myself. You will have heard of some of my crimes already, no doubt, and I confess that I am proud of them, despite what the others say. It was I who cut off the golden hair of Sif, the goddess of corn, and it was I who stole Freya's necklace. Idun, with her golden apples of immortality, was kidnapped by none other than me. And didn't I sting Brock and do everything I could to spoil Thor's thunder-clapping hammer? Yes, if you do not recognize my face, as dark as a burnt-out tree, and my eyes, which dance like flames, you will know me by my deeds. I am Loki, god of fire, mischief, and all those things that are naughty but fun. Some, I am afraid to say that I am bad. Look, my life was never easy. I always had a bit of an identity crisis, and I still don't know whether I am the son of Odin or his brother. Am I a god or am I a giant? If I am half and half of these two groups, bound to war throughout the ages, then where does that leave me? Being of the god of fire doesn't help either. Everyone knows that sometimes fire warms you up, and other times it burns down your house and fields and forests and everything else. Okay, I did bad, destructive things, but if Odin was so wonderful, where was his mercy and forgiveness? Or was it because he was so totally lacking in those qualities that our glory faded with time, and men turned elsewhere? I mean, who worships the Norse gods these days? Very few. This story is about one of my disasters. Look, I'm the god of fire, aren't I? So is it my fault I'm hot-tempered? It all happened at Aegir's feast. He was god of the sea, and being god of fire, I am always jumpy in the water. No one else was happy either, so you can imagine what sort of feast it was. Though the tone lightened as the servants passed the great horns of mead around the table, and the gods drank more and more, but somehow they missed me out. Wonderful servants, Aegir, said one of the gods. They see to everything and everyone. Nothing is left undone. Hang on a minute. They missed me out, didn't they? I was so angry. I tell you, I leapt up and clobbered one of those blasted servants. He fell backwards onto the stone flags and lay stiff. There was a terrible silence, I remember. Turns out the stones had killed him. Everyone turned and looked at me. Out! Out! They cried. Outcast! Cast him out! I got up and left the hall, but not for long. It was too wet for me in the rain, see? Another servant was outside the hall, and I asked him what they were talking about. They're all having a lovely time, said the servant, looking at me, but they've nothing good to say about you. Incensed, I strode back into the hall and faced the silence. I am cold and wet. I have a thirst also. Who will give me a drink? Who will pass the horn to me? No one spoke. I have come to take my place. Why are you so quiet?
Oh, you cast me out, is it? Do you turn me away? There was a silence, and then at last a voice boomed. You will no more have a place among the gods. You must leave. That was Odin, the god who was probably my own father. Well, if that's how it was, I did have something to say. A curse upon you! Not a weedy human curse, but a curse from one of your own. A curse from a god to the gods. You find fault with me, but I, Loki, will never forget the faults that are yours. You, Odin, are a bit short on mercy and forgiveness, aren't you? Yours is a hard wisdom, isn't it? And you, Idun, did you not leave Asgard of your own will, even if I did sweet-talk you all the way out of the gates? You have always been stupid, and all you can do is hold a basket. And so I carried on till I got to Thor, god of thunder and war. But are you not puffed up with your pride? Where would you be without your hammer? And would you have your hammer if I had not cut the hair off that silly wife of yours? I agree, it might have been better to leave Thor out of this. But as I said, I am a bit hot-tempered. Impulsive, shall we call it. There was a grumble and a rumble, a few thunderbolts which Thor liked to throw for fun, and then a flash of lightning. Thor stood in front of me, towering with rage, swinging his hammer about. It really was time to go. Curse the lot of you, I cried. May you and yours be consumed in the endless fire, both now and at the end of days. I admit that I did take things a bit far with these insults and curses. Anyway, I left and wandered lonely over the earth, looking for somewhere safe to hide. The gods were sure to search me out and exact vengeance. I settled in a deep valley, with a river hidden in the mountains, and I built a house with windows in every wall, so I could always see if anyone was coming. Not that I relied on the windows alone. Don't forget, I often changed my shape, because I was afraid of water. I turned myself into a salmon to get used to it. What terrific swims and jumps I had in that mountain river. And I had always liked fish. Slippery as a fish, isn't that what they say? After a while I relaxed. My hiding place was safe, no one came looking, and when I was not a salmon but in my true form, I started weaving. Not cloth, but fishing nets. They were new because I invented them, but they do take a long time to make. I had plenty of time. One day, Odin looked down on the world and saw someone busy making nets. Quickly he called Thor, Kvasir, who was quite a bit sharper than the thick thunder god, and sent them down to the valley where I was hiding. I was so busy making my net that I forgot to look out of all my new windows. I heard the cracking of branches. They were nearly upon me. I flung the half-woven net onto the fire, and salmon jumped into the river. The three gods went into my house, and they looked around. Kvasir found the charred remains of my net. I know what it is. It's a fishing net. Loki was always a brilliant fisherman, and I wouldn't be surprised if he's turned into a fish and lumped it into the river. Let's finish the net and fish for him. It didn't take long for the three of them to finish the net. Then they walked softly to the river, and they dragged it slowly from bank to bank. I sank to the bottom and lay between two rocks so that the net would pass over me. And then the gods tied a heavy stone to the net so that it could not miss me, but I jumped over it and rushed headlong into the waterfall. The gods moved downstream and tried once more. I jumped again. Thor was watching and seized me as I jumped. I was slipping out of his grasp, but he gripped my tail tight. Oh, I wriggled, but he held me fast. I could do nothing, and was changed back into my true shape. They dragged me to a cave nearby.
They bored holes in 3 great rocks and bound me to the stones with iron fetters. My punishment was to stay there for all time. But even that was not enough. They hung a serpent over me to drop poison on my face. I cannot tell you how painful this was. No words can describe it. Thank goodness I had a good wife, Sigyn, though I was not a good husband. She heard my screams echoing in the wind and came to help me. She caught the poison in a cup, but when it was full she turned to empty it, and the drops of poison fell on me. I could not escape them, try though I did. I strained the iron on my flesh, and I pulled so hard the earth trembled and quaked. So that was that. I, Loki, received my punishment until the end of the world. Then I will become pure fire, consume my chains, and fight against the gods with my fire of destruction. Ha! The last laugh will be mine. That was a story of the punishment of Loki. Next week, we'll have a story from another mythos, but for now it's time to move on to the next segment. Now let's move on to the next segment, which I like to call Keeping Up with the Christians. In this segment, I take a look at what the Christians are doing lately and dissect it from a non-Christian's point of view. Part of this is a report on their goings-on, and part of it's just making fun of them, so I hope you enjoy it. This week, in Keeping Up with the Christians, according to an article on VaticanNews.va, the Pope spoke about the importance of workplace safety and says that workers are people and not numbers. But honestly, when reading deeper into the article, it starts out talking about the Workers' Association of Italy that was formed after World War II, but then goes on to talk about how everyone who is working should be motivated and competitive in the workplace, and talks about how hypocritical and lazy workers who talk about doing work without actually doing any are foolish, and gives examples of a few people in the Bible who are hard workers and who diligently strive to perform good work. Basically, he gives a long talk about how important it is to work hard and be safe while doing it. Not for the companies to ensure the safety of the workers, not for the companies to make any changes, simply for the workers to work hard and to be careful and remember that they are people and not numbers. In other news, according to an article on charismanews.com, at a gathering of North Carolina pastors and spiritual leaders, more than 130 North Carolina pastors expressed interest in running for office, and currently 30 of them will be actually running for office this year. They want to fill the offices with Christians so that they can outlaw abortions. Basically, they want to enforce Christianity's morals on everyone else, which, as we have seen throughout history, is anything but just and kind. Additionally, on KilgoreNewsHerald.com, Reverend Jason Goller wrote that each and every day of 2021, an average of 131 Texans died from coronavirus, and at the same time, an additional 118 died from abortion. Even with the heartbeat law in Texas, he is asserting that the abortion is almost as large an issue as the coronavirus pandemic, and yet receives little to no attention comparatively. He then goes on to say that the death that is brought by their God is a consequence of our sinful nature. So basically, he is saying that choosing not to have children that would be forced to grow up in poor conditions without knowing love and with a 50-50 shot of ending up in the criminal system is almost as big a problem as the people dying from illness that is sweeping across the globe. And he is intimating that if everyone becomes a Christian and stops doing bad things, then the virus will go away because it is just God's punishment. Let alone the fact that Christians themselves say that they cannot live perfectly and admit to being sinners who can only find redemption through their slave master. So if they are correct, we are all going to die and COVID will never go away. But if that is the case,
then why are they so mad about abortion when there are so many other sins going on? And why the focus on only the abortions and deaths that are happening in Texas? Are Christians supposed to only honor and love their literal neighbors and not the neighbors throughout the world? Finally, according to a post on GodHatesFags.com, the official website of the Westboro Baptist Church, they are planning to protest at the T-Mobile Center in Kansas City on Saturday, the 1st of February, because of Elton John concert that will be going on there. Now, to clear up a couple of details, they don't just hate Sir Elton John because he is a sodomite, which is Christian speak for someone who enjoys butt love. No, they also hate him because he supposedly gives money generously to fight against their slave master in the sky, because after his close friend Freddie Mercury died to AIDS, as well as several others close to Sir Elton John, he began donating large sums of money to fight against AIDS. And as they hold that AIDS is sent by their slave master, fighting against AIDS is fighting against their deity, and so he is branded as evil for loving who he loves and trying to help people not die from a horrible virus. Oh, and he called Jesus gay. That pisses them off too. So, if any of you guys are going to be in or around Kansas City on the evening of the 1st of February, I encourage you to go and see Sir Elton John in concert. And if you happen to be there around 7 to 7:45 p.m. while the Westboro Baptist Church is protesting, I invite you to preach some of them of the doctrine of the old gods, because if they have the right to preach in public, so do we. Well, that's it for Keeping Up with the Christians for today. Tune in next week to find out the latest Christian drama. Now it's time for the audience Q&A. This week, I received an email from one of my listeners by the name of Stephanie, whose business was featured in Pagan Promotions section of episode 10, Mystic Moontree. She writes, Max, what are some of your favorite practices or things to participate in as a pagan? Merry meet, Stephanie. It may seem a little strange to think about, but despite running this paganism-related podcast, I do not feel like I honestly do that much to practice the spiritual side of my paganism, outside of offering prayers to my goddesses and gods, and I frequently burn candles and meditate, with focus on channeling and controlling energy, as well as performing healing by laying my hands on a person and, well, meditating by moving my energy and theirs and the energies of the world around us to facilitate their body advancing the healing process. My two favorite activities as a pagan are holding small Wheel of the Season rituals with a few friends, although we haven't done this recently. It's something I would like to get going again, as well as simply going out into nature and taking a walk. I live in a desert, and so there isn't much greenery, but there is still a lot of nature if you get outside of the city. And one of the most cleansing activities for me has always been just smoking a joint or three while taking a long walk alone through the desert and letting my mind wander. Now, I cannot suggest that others try this, as it clearly sounds like a good way to die. But maybe if you guys live somewhere that the environment isn't trying to kill you, you could give it a shot. I hope that answers your question, Stephanie. Merry meet, merry part, and merry meet again. To anyone else who wants to chime in, if you want to ask questions, leave comments, send in suggestions, send in content suggestions, or even just send me death threats and hate mail because you're a butthurt Christian and can't stand to hear me talking smack about your religion, please feel free to send them in at paganparlor1313@gmail.com. Well, that's all I have for today. Links to the podcast will be posted in the Sorcerers Guild and the Pagan Daily News Facebook groups, thanks to gracious permissions from group admins. Also, if you haven't yet, make sure to check out the Pagan Parlor Facebook page and the Pagan Parlor Facebook group to stay up to date on current episodes and discuss their contents with the other listeners as well as myself. Thank you for tuning into the Pagan Parlor. Finally, I'd like to say again that any questions, comments, suggestions, or death threats can be sent to paganparlor1313@gmail.com. The whole of the law shall be do as thou wilt, but harm none. Blessed be, and don't forget to blow out your candles.